Okay, this is Mike Oakley. Today what we're going to do is show you how we can quickly get from an inventor-created model to a nice rendering that you saw in the previous post. To do that, we're going to use a product that comes inside a product design suite called Showcase. Showcase is a real-time rendering tool that allows you to import data from just about any CAD system out there and very easily start defining materials, environments, and colors so that you can produce images for websites, for product literature, brochures, etc. So the first thing we see when we start up Showcase is a wizard. This wizard will tell us and kind of guide us through the process of importing data. Over here we have the popular Autodesk formats that we can import, AutoCAD, Inventor, Revit, Alias, FBX. And then under Other, we have other formats such as Pro Engineer, SOLIDWORKS, CATIA V5, STEP, IGES, lots of different things. Over here we also have some sample environments we might want to start off with. Now what's important to note here is if I select an environment to start with, I can always change it later after I've imported this data. So here we'll just keep this default and then we'll choose our Inventor format as well. When I choose Inventor, I can use a project file, so this ensures that it can find all the components and parts related to that project file. And I can also import constraints from Inventor, such as a driven constraint. So if you have kind of a motion or a mechanism that moves by a driven constraint, you can simulate that animation inside of Showcase. So here I'm going to select the Hammock IAM file, and we'll go ahead and import that. Now I also have some options here for controlling how much level of detail I want to see on here. I typically start with low because you can of course adjust this as you go. I don't start with high because it affects the import time. So low brings things in pretty fast, and then I can always make adjustments once I get the data in. Okay, now that I've imported this geometry, you can see a couple things here. So first of all, it used the environment that we told it to use when we started the import process. We're inside of this warehouse. This obviously isn't the right type of environment we want to use here, so we'll change this in a minute. The other thing it did is it created some standard shots or just different vantage points that we can look at this product from. And so here you can see this is kind of an animated shot. It starts off by zooming in, and here's a shot that kind of orbits around. These of course can be changed. You can delete them, you can create new ones, you can do all sorts of things to create your presentation that you're going to create for your marketing department or your customer. The other thing you'll notice is that it actually imported the materials that we defined inside of Inventor. So since we use some standard hardware from the Content Center, you can see this hardware here is coming in shiny aluminum. And then the geometry that I created inside of Inventor, I just left it at standard gray tones, so you can see those came in as gray. If you define any kind of colors inside of Inventor, those will come across the Showcase and you won't have to do anything with them. That's part of the suite's initiative, which was to standardize on the common material libraries across the Autodesk products. Now here you can see an example of using a low density for a mesh. Here we have kind of a chunky edge here, and so we probably want to make that look a little bit more smooth, so I need to make some refinements to my mesh that I imported. So I can easily bring up my import screen again by hitting I, and here you can see the source files that I have here. Now here you can see that we're set at low. I can choose my settings options here, and we can try something a little bit higher. So we have a lot of small parts on here, so we'll choose that. Now here my import screen is telling me that it needs an update, so I'll go ahead and select that update. Now what's important here as well is that this will show needs updating if I were to add or change anything inside of my Inventor assembly as well. So Showcase is fully associative with the data that gets imported. And this includes anything like even Pro Engineer or CATIA V5 or SOLIDWORKS. So a change inside of those CAD tools will register a need update inside of Showcase. So you don't have to re-import and redo your work. So by simply changing that tessellation to small details, I've eliminated kind of the chunky edges here, and I have something that's more smooth and more realistic. So that that's something that you can change at any time. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is get rid of this environment and change to something else that's more appropriate. So here what we can do is just simply select E for environments, and Showcase will display the available environments that we have here. So we have quite a few that we provide out of the box. We'll just choose this grass field here, and it will switch to that grass field environment. Selecting E again will remove that menu from my screen. And so here we have something that's more appropriate, for this hammock environment. And more likely this is an environment that Rob would probably be sitting in. I don't know if we have too many mountains in Nebraska, but certainly plenty of grassy fields that he might be hanging out in. So the other thing that I like to show customers is that this is a true real-time tool. And so one of the ways to kind of prove that is we can bring up this environment, light and shadows environment, and we can just play around with by dragging and moving this shadow around interactively. So you can see here that as I'm dragging this shadow around, I'm getting changes to the lighting direction as I'm working with this. So we'll just make some adjustments here, just kind of leave it like this. That looks pretty good, and close it down. Now the next thing we need to do to make this a little bit more realistic is we just need to start defining some real materials here. So let's start off with some of the wood materials. So I'll select this object, and if I do a right mouse click, I can select all those objects as well. And how do you think you pull up the material editor, the material palette? Well, you just choose M on your keyboard, and it will bring up the materials that we provide as part of Showcase. And so here we'll just kind of look at some of our Showcase extended materials here. We can look at some of the wood materials that we have. And since this is an outdoor component, I will probably use teak, and then maybe something with no gloss. Now let's just zoom in here. You can see here that we really don't see any wood grain. We don't see anything like that on here. And that might be because the scaling of the material is not quite right. So that's a simple thing to fix with Showcase. So here I'm just going to select this material, and to bring up the material editor, I can just do Control M on my keyboard, or I can go up to my appearance area and pull up my material properties. Now once I bring up my material properties, one of the things I like to do is just choose this auto fit command. And you can see by auto fitting it adjusts and does a pretty good job with scaling. However, my grain direction is not quite in the right direction. So I can choose move texture here, and then I have this nice gizmo here that I can work with to rotate this around and get my grain direction to look properly. So we'll just kind of play with this a little bit. And so here you can see in a couple seconds we get some nice grain direction is proper, and then I can even do things like copy and paste this material to the other side so that I don't have to redo that. So here we'll just do a copy and a paste to move that to the other side. Now here, the way I created this in Inventor is I created this, the part that you sit on or lay on, as a single surface. And so surfaces get imported to Showcase, and we can apply a material to those as well. But I also didn't want to model all the little ropes that connect the actual hammock component to the wood components of this. I wanted to use Showcase as a way to kind of simulate that. So here what I need to do is break this surface into a couple pieces. Now I have that capability here inside of Showcase using the edit patches command. So here we're going to extract some new patches, and we'll pick this up here, and we'll pick this one over here as well, and we'll extract that. And now when I select this, you can see I can now individually select that patch, I can individually select this one, and then of course the big one in the middle. So let's go ahead and assign some fabric to the one in the middle. And so going through my material editor here, or my material palette, I can choose on some fabrics that we predefined. I'll just choose one. And again, it didn't come in quite at the scale that I want, so I'll just use material properties again. and we'll do an auto fit to fit that. And then I want to rotate it, so we'll just bring up we'll do move texture. I can manually, move this, of course, or I can go right into my palette here and type in a specific, degree of rotation. If I select with my left mouse button this block and just kind of drag it, I can scale it in one direction as well. And so here you can see there's something that's more appropriate. If I select the block in the middle, that scales in all directions as we do this. Okay. So that makes that very easy to perform, those types of functions. Now, in a lot of cases, this fabric here is not going to be fabric. It's going to be kind of like ropes or mesh or something like that. So we can easily simulate that inside of Showcase. Before I do that, I want to just kind of save this work that I've done. So within Showcase, I can create what's called alternatives, and I have different types of alternatives that I can create. Model, material, and positional. So I want to create a model lineup or material lineup. And so let's just select this here, and I want to add it as an alternative. And so what you'll see in a minute here is by making this an alternative, I can quickly go back and forth between all my different choices to show people different options that I might have from a material or color standpoint. So here I want to make this look like a transparent, see-through, roped mesh hammock. And so I'll just simply select this and then of course bring up M on my material screen again. Now I know that I have some materials in here that are transparent. So if we just look under our metals, we have something that's called chain link fence. Well, we don't really want to make a chain link fence to sit on, but it almost looks like ropes that we can sit on. So here I'll just choose that, and again we'll bring up the material properties to make some changes to this. And so again we're going to perform an auto fit on this. And you can see here that I'm seeing through this as well. Now one of the things, if you look at our material editor here, we see that we have a color here. We could override that color, make it something else. So maybe something kind of a brown color for ropes. Ropes probably wouldn't be shiny or reflective, so we can turn reflectivity off. And then these two things at the bottom here are kind of interesting. So this is how you create transparency. So in this case we can see we have a black background with white elements that define the actual links of this chain link fence here. You can use a simple tool like Photoshop or Sketchbook Pro to create just a simple black and white image like that. And then this bump map actually makes this component here look kind of bumpy and not just kind of flat. So we'll just leave that as well. Now I can of course change the scaling of this. I'm just going to grab the middle box here and we're going to play with the scaling of this, to kind of drag it, to an appropriate size that we would have for some kind of mesh rope scenario. And so there we have it. So we have something that looks, very transparent, obviously. And then again, I want to make this an alternative. So now I can just quickly toggle, back and forth, between these two components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this showcase file up on the blog, and I'm going to allow you guys out there to, go ahead and complete this. Now I might want to simulate some sort of zigzag rope up here in this area here. So think of some creative ways that we might be able to do that, inside of Showcase based off of what you've seen. So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next part of what Rob may be doing on sabbatical.